Jeff Nadu, Big Man on Campus. The podcast is called Big Man on Basketball, Barstool Sports. Championship weekend, tons of great college games. We're going to take a look at some of the early lines and how you should be looking at them as we get you ready. Right now on the Sports Bash, Jeff Nadu, Barstool Sports. What's going on, Jeff?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
All is well, man. Last week of multiple football games. It's a little sad. I mean, I get hit a little hard when the last week of the football gets here. Kind of makes me feel a little down, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. Crazy we're actually here. But it's went off mostly without a hitch. I mean, it's pretty great that it's here. But, yeah, it's always sad when college football ends and the NFL gets closer and closer to ending. But, I think the great thing about one of the only good things about this past year is next year, hopefully, we don't have to do this.
That's right.
There's some things to look forward to.
Well,
it'll be a different season, all sorts of stuff. So I'm excited.
You're right. I'm looking forward to the day when we can get, some of these games this weekend with fans back in the stands was kind of crazy. Just to see, some of these buildings, You could tell the difference. Like Green Bay, the noise was just a little different. But hey, hopefully sometime soon. But let's start there. Let's look at the NFL games early here, because this one, I'd like to get your opinion on how you're looking at this Bills-Chiefs. We don't know what's going to happen with Mahomes. Do you take a chance to say, hey, he's going to play, so I'm going to jump on this line early? It's 2.5. Bills, Chiefs favored by 2.5, 3 at some spots. It's Tuesday, and you're telling the people out there this is what you're looking at, how do you kind of handicap that one with the uncertainty?
It's tough. I mean, the first thing I'll say is, it just might be Buffalo's year, Mike. I mean, you have the way they've been terrific. Offensively been great. They're getting stops, but it's all starting to come up, green for Buffalo. But yeah, as far as this, my gut says that Patrick Mahomes doesn't play. I know that it's the playoffs, and I know that concussions are different in everyone, but I mean, to think that he can come back, 6.5 days later, is pretty crazy. I mean, keep in mind, Mike, according to the Henry Ford Clinic, they actually look at data. They looked at data for 3 years involving players that get concussions in the NFL. On average, it was 19 days before they'd play, on average.
Yeah.
So, there's really no way in telling. You obviously, if you get another concussion, it could be really, really bad. So you got to be careful. You can't just jump back in. But I hope for the NFL's sake he plays. But as far as betting it, you got to just do your own due diligence to try to find some info. But you're not going to really find much, because it's really going to be about how he feels on Sunday, and it's going to be a day by day kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Bills right now getting 2.5 points, and if Mahomes doesn't play, I guess you got to feel pretty, or 3 some places, you got to feel pretty good if he doesn't play going in with points if you're a Buffalo guy. So you might want to take that chance, jump in on it now, see what happens. Hey, it's why it's called gambling. So you got that game as the late game. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick, look, I said on record that if Patrick Mahomes is fully healthy, I think they take care of Buffalo fairly easily. But, with him possibly not playing, it's all about what info you can find. If you hear something that you trust, I feel like with Chad Henne at quarterback, I would very much like 3 points with the Bills. So, yeah, I mean, Mahomes is worth a lot of points.
Yeah. All right, Jeff Nadu, Barstool Sports, Big Man on basketball. We'll get to a couple basketball thoughts. He's been really hot in the NBA. Buccaneers, Packers, games at Lambeau, 3.5, pretty much across the board. Buccaneers defense had a nice game plan last week, but that was a 42-year-old Drew Brees, and this Aaron Rodgers looks a heck of a lot better than that Drew Brees.
Yeah, no, and look, if you know anything about Aaron Rodgers, I think I said it on your show last week. I mean, whether it's in the playoffs or in the regular season, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is just not a lock, but he's as close to a lock as you're going to find at home in the playoffs. But I got to give the Bucs some credit. Tom Brady continues to defy age, and even last season, I didn't think Tom Brady was particularly good at times, but he has really shown just, the legend that he is, the greatest quarterback ever. But what a quarterback matchup. But I give the edge to the Packers just being at home. And, Aaron Rodgers is playing at such a high level right now. It's a tough game. I didn't really have a ton of thought on last week's Bucs game with the Saints. I thought it was tough. I did like Green Bay, but this is a tough game. I'll give a slight edge to the Packers, but it's going to be a terrific game. And these games are both going to be great. That's why it'd be really good if Mahomes plays, because these should be two great games if you get a full complement of everyone. But gun in my head, I would take the Packers, and at this point, I don't think Mahomes is going to play. So I would surely like the Bills.
Hey, check out the podcast, Big Man on Basketball. It'll drop tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Apple Pods, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Gaining some steam, 2-1 Friday with the show, 3-0 last night with some college games. So that Kansas game, by the way, I would imagine if you were in on that, you woke up this morning and said, holy mackerel.
Yeah, Mike, it's fascinating, man. I have a TV right in my office here, right above my head where I'm right now. And when Kansas Baylor had their final possession, there was like a second and a half left. I actually switched the game off and went to something else. 5 minutes later, I get DMs about, oh my God, did you see Kansas? Did you see Kansas? I go back and look. They banked a 3, and I couldn't believe it. And a walk-on, no less.
Was that what it was?
I was on Kansas. It was a walk-on. The kid walk-on off the bench. Me and my co-host, Mike Randall, we both liked Kansas, thought it was just too many points. I thought they played really well in the second half. Baylor had, Baylor's really good, as we know. But, that was a rough beat if you had Baylor.
Yeah, unfortunately, you guys got a better number than I did. I ended up getting the push. At least I got the push, at least. But you got better numbers than I did.
Yeah, it's better than losing.
Yeah, sure is. You talk about Baylor, Gonzaga, those two right now, better. I mean, they're light years better than everybody else.
They are, yes. I mean, Villanova, we haven't seen in a month. They actually come back tonight against the Hall. Look, I think they're probably the third best team. I think Tennessee is really good, Mike. I think we have to start kind of realizing they could be, they probably are the third best team in the country. They're just so superior on the defensive end, and they can really do something. And I think that's where they can kind of, you can make the case that long term they're one of the best bets you can make because they're so long and just great on the defensive end. They've got guys this year offensively that are terrific, whether it's Keon Johnson or Jaden Springer or Vescovi, their point guard. He's a good South American point guard. He's really cut down on his turnovers this year. I think those two are better than everyone by a pretty wide margin. But I'm keeping an eye on Tennessee, obviously Villanova tonight with the game against the Hall. That's a tough game. We'll see what Jay's team looks like coming off of a long week.
Now, why Tennessee opened 3.5? It's up to 7.5.
Yeah. Well, you have a big move here. Keep in mind, Keontae Johnson's been out after he collapsed about a month ago in the court. He seems to be doing a lot better. But Florida also without Scotty Lewis here as well, making the case he's probably their second best player. Right now Mike White's team is really hobbling in. They've not played well either. You really look at since that Florida State loss where they lost Johnson, they've lost a lot of games. And the games they're losing they're not close generally. This is a team that's poorly coached, Mike. They have the problem of they have a lot of guys out, and they're dealing with a team that's just kind of got an identity crisis. Mike White, their coach, is just horrid. I mean, he doesn't play the right offenses. He should go fast. He goes slow. I just don't see a feasible way that Florida score in this game. I mean, you look at how good Tennessee is defensively. I'm not really sure that they can stop Tennessee when Tennessee's on offense. I just think it's a tough game, and bettors are starting to key into that. But there's some big injuries. Florida's just not the same team without Lewis and Johnson.
All right. One other game that's on my mind before I can kind of let you throw out a couple things that you might like. I know last time we talked, you started to kind of like that LSU team a little bit. They're a point dog at home tonight against Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama, Mike, when you watch teams enough, as I do, you start to see things where I feel like I could see things sometimes that a lot of people aren't seeing, where, like, teams get every loose ball. Every time the ball's on the floor, they pick it up somehow. The possession arrow is always favoring them. They have injuries, but it doesn't matter because they have tons of guys and they play well. Alabama's playing that way right now. They have a lot of things going their way, and they've been terrific, man. I mean, you look at, they've basically rattled off 8 in a row here. They beat and destroyed Arkansas over the weekend, beat Kentucky by 20. This is just a team that's tough to play right now. But LSU, I was surprised to see them a dog at home. They are really good in their own right. Cameron Thomas is one of the best players in the country. They've got a kid, Darius Days, who's just a rebounding machine. This should be a high-scoring game. First to 80 likely wins. That's the reason the total's in the 160s. I've talked before, Mike, about pace. Pace is very important in college basketball. If you can get just one team to go fast, you're going to do well. If you can get both teams to go fast, then you got a good one. Alabama, third in the country in possession length. LSU 60th. Both these teams go fast. Should be a fun game in Baton Rouge. Gun to my head, though, I don't want to bet against Alabama right now, but I also don't want to bet against LSU. So I would just bang on points here.
All right. Is there a college game you are zoning in on tonight?
Yeah, I like DePaul at home against Butler. Butler has not won on the road this year. This is a Butler team still kind of creating cohesion with Aaron Thompson coming back. People will look at the win over the weekend against Creighton and get happy, but it was in overtime. Creighton was without Zagorowski, who's their best player. Really doesn't hold a lot of weight, frankly. I look at DePaul, and I think this team's going to be a real tough team all season. They have some really good players. If you know anything about the Sixers, Paul Reed, Sixer, he was a DePaul player. They've got a player there, Romeo Weems now, very similar to Paul Reed. They're a team that's tough. They go fast. They're a pretty good offensive team. And they've actually are really good on the perimeter defensively. If you know anything about Butler, very much a three-point shooting team, like to take jump shots. I think DePaul's kind of a team that can bother them tonight. And don't sleep on DePaul, Mike. They don't shoot a lot of threes, but when they do, they get hot. This is a good shooting team. I think they finally get their first win in the Big East this year. They've had a tough schedule. I think this is a good spot to get a win for the Blue Demons at home.
All right. Jeff Nadu, Barstool Sports. The podcast is Big Man on Basketball. Drops tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Small card in the NBA. Any of those two games, Thunder, Nuggets, Pelican, Jazz, pushing your pile?
Not particularly. Just a really light night after yesterday with the MLK tradition card. Yeah, I don't have much on these two. I'll kind of just wait for Wednesday. We'll get a bigger card tomorrow. And, the Thunder are playing decent, though. I mean, Lou Dortz looked really good. The Nuggets, Mike, have been a good over team. They're one of the slowest teams in the league from a pace perspective, but they're very efficient. Defensively, they struggle. So you have kind of a clash in styles there. Nuggets efficient, Thunder really slow and not as efficient. Pelicans, Jazz, maybe slightly into the Pelicans. Just think it might be a couple of too many points. But that one was 6.5. It's now 5.5. So you're definitely not getting the best numbers. So I'll skip the NBA for tonight.
All right, yeah. Don't force it, guys. Don't force it if there's nothing there. Jeff Nadu, Barstool Sports. More on basketball on Big Man on Basketball. Drops tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. wherever you get your podcast. It's a great listen. Check out Monday's edition. You'll learn a lot of stuff. Keep listening. It's almost like a sitcom. You got to keep listening to learn more and more about certain teams that you'll start to find out more about. And that drops tomorrow morning. Jeff's back on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And we'll take a closer look at that football card and all the college basketball from the weekend, the NBA, the fights, the soccer. We got it all right here on the Sports Best. Jeff, take care, man.
Got a great guest tomorrow, Mike. Make sure you listen. It's going to be a great show. Thanks for having me on.
As always, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.